Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. We're going to be talking about the Warriors of Chaos DLC today, as I think I have a theory as to how we'll see it happen. Now before anything, I do apologize if my voice sounds a little bit strange. I've been recording with my band lately and singing about 4 hours into a microphone for the past 3 days straight was just not a good idea. But with all that being said, let's just jump right in. So we know from the Creative Assembly roadmap that the Warriors of Chaos are going to get an update eventually. Well, at some point this year, just it's been a bit slow with the updates. With that, we know that a DLC is coming with 4 champions, and many of us have thought, well, maybe it's race versus race, maybe it's 2 legendary lords and 2 legendary heroes, you know, stuff that actually makes sense. And I kind of thought that a little bit the same. However, I did have a theory a few weeks ago, and I think I can justify it now. We spoke about the possibility of getting what we've always wanted, Warriors of Chaos, but divided into their own specific god sections, not turning them into monogods, but something very similar. This means that the famed artwork that many of us are used to seeing in videos, this one right here on screen right now, would be the eventual reality. We'd get Warriors of Chaos looking like Warriors of Chaos, which you already have now, but Warriors of Slaanesh looking like Warriors of Slaanesh, Warriors of Nurgle looking like Warriors of Nurgle, and Warriors of Tzeentch looking like Warriors of Tzeentch. They'll be following old artwork from Games Workshop way back in the day, and of course this is fan art, but it follows the same framework. So this would mean that we'd get a race pack sized DLC, and interestingly enough, it's very possible, even though it's technically going to be 4 races. We've had this in the launch of Total War Warhammer 3, some of you are probably not playing at the moment, but as you are aware, we have Demons of Khorne, Demons of Nurgle, Demons of Slaanesh, and Demons of Tzeentch, all of which also combine to be Chaos Undivided for the Demons of Chaos. Now, like I said, we did speak about this in a video where it was going into detail about a second race pack for the Warriors of Chaos, but there's something that I forgot to discuss, and to be honest, a lot of people haven't been discussing, so let's talk about Games Workshop. So, as we're all aware, Games Workshop works closely with Creative Assembly with regards to races and factions, DLCs and all that, and it's something that has been very known when it comes to Warhammer 3, mainly because of Kislev and Cathay. The framework was created by GW, and CA then expanded upon it, but they're working off a army book that was provided to them by Games Workshop. This has been the case with, say for example, my interviews with Andy Hall, where even for the Cafe one, he was reading off a direct book. This is likely to be the Old World Army book. Because unless you've been living on the rock or you're not following the Warhammer the Old World news, Kislev and Cafe have been confirmed to be factions in Warhammer the Old World, the revival of Warhammer Fantasy. So how does this affect the Chaos factions? Well, interestingly enough, this is something that Games Workshop does with pretty much every one of their settings now, where we'll get a Chaos Undivided. This is to say, for example, the Slaves to Darkness for Age of Sigmar, or just the generic Chaos Space Marine book for Warhammer 40,000, and then they start doing separate types of mono-god factions. So again, for Age of Sigmar, then we've got a Slaanesh faction, a Khorne faction, a Tzeentch faction, and a Nurgle faction. For 40k, we currently have a Nurgle faction and a Tzeentch faction, but we know that a Khorne faction is coming, and they did say wait your turn to the Slaaneshi faction. So that means that if it carries on like this, it's very possible, it's very, very possible that we'll see that happen for Warhammer the Old World too, as the Warhammer Fantasy setting did have many different warbands which followed a specific god and weren't just undivided, meaning that in Old World we will get Chaos Undivided, Chaos Warriors of Khorne, Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch. And then with a bunch of new designs and a bunch of new art assets, well, that's pretty good territory for DLC for Total War. We're all kind of thinking that Total War Warhammer is also serving to promote Old World. This is definitely going to be the case that they're going to draw inspiration from that, and Games Workshop will allow for it, because while it technically is a different IP, there's nothing to stop them from taking from that if Games Workshop allow it. And again, we've already seen that happen with Kislev and Cafe. It's very possible that this will happen again, because that means that they can sell more, they can cross-promote more, and the fact is Games Workshop really like chaos. It's a very obvious thing, at least in the most recent years. So that solves one thing, but it doesn't really change everything. You see, even if we get, say for example, all the Chaos Warriors looking as they would in lore, with a reskin or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really add too much to the roster. We do need to get a few more things to be able to have them have their own playstyle, at least for the monogod factions. So there's a few things that Creative Assembly can do, two in fact, which I'm imagining they could even do both. The first would be being the reverse of the mono-god factions, the demon ones. So here, with these types of DLCs, the Warriors of Chaos of Slaanesh, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle would have access to a few demons from the demon rosters. So just like the demons have a few mortals, it would just be reversed, and it would work out quite well. Obviously, the Warriors of Chaos Undivided wouldn't need this, as they would have access to Warriors of Chaos and all the different subgroups, just like how the Demons of Chaos currently work, though they do have a few mortals. But I guess that's because he needs to be buffed up a little bit more. But this works from a pretty good lore perspective too, because we have seen, say for example, Valkyria working with demons, or having demons under her command. If we get a demon prince, or maybe a demon kin, like say Azazel or T'Challa, they've also been known to have some demons around their ranks too, so this does work very, very well in lore, the gods providing a bit of support to their champions. And while yes, I know some people might not be keen on that, because, well, you know, we're just paying for them again, well, it's essentially working just to fluff up the roster a little bit. Keep in mind that a lot of the times we are kind of paying for the same thing over and over with these types of games, because it's mostly the same rigs and everything, just a different skin. Plus, I think it would work out quite well to have Valkyria having some bloodletters, or just like, say for example, if we go for a character like Festus the Leech Lord, he would be kind of cool to have a few different plague bearers. I mean, that would just be kind of fun, and it could add to a different type of playstyle too. And the next would be fluffing out the roster with Age of Sigmar units. Now, we've spoken about this before, but new information has recently come out, which makes me think as why this may be possible. So, if you haven't been following Warhammer 30k, which is set during the big fight between all the Space Marine factions, new factions are coming into play. That is the Adeptus Custodes, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and also the Knights, which are for both Heretic and Loyalist. Now, that might be sounding a bit very strange to you, but these are factions from 40k which are going to be playable in Warhammer 30k, using the exact same models, something which surprises many people, mostly because, well, Games Workshop don't tend to do that. They normally just bring in new models, so you'll have to buy new stuff. Now, if we look at the Age of Sigmar stuff, we know that that all kind of fits with Warhammer Fantasy, the theme in general, the armor, the look of the units and all that, but not only that, it's kind of based on a lot of old artwork from Warhammer Fantasy that is just making it to Age of Sigmar now, so the correlation is there, and it's likely that those units will be playable in tabletop old world. Loads of people put them on square bases anyway at this point, and I guess that Games Workshop should be aware of that, because they keep an eye on a lot of stuff. Believe me, they have eyes everywhere. But it allows them to fluff up the roster with stuff that they already have available. Now, I'm not saying that the full Hedonites of Slaanesh is going to be available for Warhammer the Old World, but a decent amount of them would be, because it would make sense. The same with the Khorne Warriors, or even just some units from, say, for example, the Nurgle roster, the Tzeentchian roster. It very much depends, but it does fit very well. So if those units end up in Warhammer the Old World because of cross-compatibility, which is something that we've been speaking about many times, but now seems to be a bit more obvious with the 30k to 40k section, well, then that works for us, because if it ends up in Old World, it could end up in Total War Warhammer 3 as part of DLC units, which will allow for more unique units to be brought in the form of DLC. Now, I could very much be wrong, but everything seems a tad too convenient, and obviously we will find out eventually. Quarter 3 is getting closer and closer, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long to find out about the DLC, but it does seem to be something that is doable. But let me know what you guys think about this theory in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. I might take tomorrow off, by the way, from videos, mainly because it's kind of painful to talk at the very moment.